Aloha! What's up, everyone? Welcome to my channel. I'm JayDreamerZ. This is going to be a really fun episode. I'll tell you what actually inspired me to do this episode. Colorado recently, it's 2023 for those of you who are watching in the future. It's January, and Colorado recently, a bunch of states, everybody's passing laws, brand new laws and stuff. And I came across some laws that blew my mind because I don't hear about them because I don't watch the news. So I just sort of experience the overflow of what happens afterwards. Okay, so this is going to lead us into Lady Justice and talking about symbols of justice, etc. I was really upset. I went to the store, I bought a lot of stuff, and they did not give me any bags whatsoever. They were like, well, we'll charge you for, a bunch of bags or whatnot. So they started charging people for plastic bags, and I'm like, wow, that's crazy. When'd you start doing that? And basically they're like, oh, well, that's a law now. Yeah, we have to do it. We have to charge you for your little plastic bags that don't cost anything. And I'm like, wow, that's crazy. And the person that was selling me this stuff, just like every other person at almost every store I've been to, looks me square in my face, and they're just like, that's the law. like it was no big deal to them. Like I should have been up on things. I was so mind blown. I had to go home and start researching the laws and all these new laws that have been passed. And every time I found one, they blew my mind. For example, here's one of the first ones right here. They passed a law basically saying that chicken farms, or whatever they call them, that they have to give the chickens 1 square foot of room on each side. That's why you have the picture of the chickens here. So this is skyrocketing the price of eggs and anything that has to do with chickens and stuff like that. Their deal is they say they want to treat the chickens humanely. By giving them extra room in their cage by however many inches it already is. You know what I mean? So that was kind of mind-blowing to me because I don't believe that the government or any government entity actually cares in general. I don't think that I don't see any evidence that they actually care about people or animals or anything like that. Not only that, but it's like, look what they're using them for anyways. They're slaves anyway, you know what I mean? But anyway, so I went home to check it out, see what the deal was. I guess the price of eggs were going to go skyrocket. They're going to shoot sky high. There was something else about some egg flu or something. I don't know. But anyways, then I found this one too, where they said that we're going to start charging you. They're like, from now on, you need to bring your own bags. Right. I'm like, bring my own bags. You should literally have signs saying, don't bring any bags in. Don't bring any foreign bags like backpacks and stuff. Those are the kind of bags I have into your store. So I'm like, this is insane, right? I had to look all this stuff up. Here's another one. This one's crazy too. So basically, I'm just going to sum all this up. But basically, they passed a law saying that they're just going to take people's money right out of their paycheck before it even hits their bank account. They're going to take it. They're going to skim off the top once again, for all of the slave labor that's happening out here in Colorado. I don't know if this applies other places, but for all of you who have regular slave jobs where they tax you and they get to take all these different monies and stuff off the top before they actually give you the money, which by the way is theft. Okay. That's robbery in my book. They're doing it again. They're like, we're going to skim some more off the top. And the reason is because, we want to be able to give some people, some vacations under limited circumstances or something like that. And gosh, that welled up some feelings inside of me. Let me just double check the chat, make sure I'm actually live streaming. Okay, cool. Yeah, I had all these feelings welling up inside of me because I don't like, bullies. I don't like Big Brother telling people what to do and passing all these different laws and stuff. I don't like laws either. This is actually the end of the presentation, so we'll come back to the little bonus stage. But that took me home, and instead of jumping on YouTube and just venting because I was pissed, I was so mad at the system. They're little ticky-tack laws, I guess you could say, but those little ticky-tack laws that are passed that people just accept or whatnot, they get bigger. They're little cracks in the door to allow their feet to get in, to allow the government bullies to charge into your homes, my homes, and start changing your ways of life. So I was so upset. I'm like, I'm studying this. I went home, I started studying. Well, my studying led me to the ancient forms of justice. Okay. And I'm glad I did this. I highly recommend this. It's very therapeutic for me instead of just being angry. I was angry while I was studying for probably like an hour or two. But I got over it and I started learning a lot of cool stuff about the symbols for justice, right? This one is the one we're going to start off with, Lady Justice. Also, I'm going to jump into the chat. I'm just going to call it the after chat. I'm going to jump into the chat after the presentation. So we'll do the presentation, roll the credits. And for those of you who want to hang out and talk, I will be here after the credits. We'll hang out for a while. All right, so let's check out Lady Justice. I'm sure that you're all very familiar with this concept that's portrayed as Lady Justice. I'm just going to call her that. She goes by many names. This is this ancient goddess of justice. Sometimes it's a god of justice. Has taken many shapes, many forms, etc. But like I've talked about in the past, I've found that quite often these images, I'm pretending like I'm looking at the image right now, but in real life, I'm just staring at the lamp on the wall. I like to make it look cool for you guys. Like I can actually see it. You know what I mean? Anyways, these images, quite often, I've found that they represent cosmic discharges and things that are difficult for them to actually draw, especially if they didn't know what they were. So they personified them. I use the word cartoonified quite often. Mike, hey, thank you, Mike. Jeez, I appreciate you. So they cartoonify these images. So basically, the actual God, I found often, is not the person themselves, not the character, not the figure, but it's all the little additions, right? All of the little additions are symbolic of what that God was. The God, oftentimes I found, was not ever human or human-ish, right? Quite often we did have examples of beings that were called the gods, but sometimes, I'm sure you found this in your research too, that sometimes a creature or an entity was labeled a god because it's easy to do that. It's a powerful entity, so they call it a god. Or it's very large, so they call it a titan. When in reality, sometimes those things were not human or humanoid whatsoever. So basically, I believe that the symbolism I'm about to show you represents that blue beam that shoots up from the middle of our world when we go through this apocalyptic energetic reversal, okay? And if you're new to my channel, be patient, take what resonates. I've got lots of different things, videos about the blue beam and stuff, so I'm just going to jump right into it. All right, so let's start things off. Lady Justice, boom, holding up the scales with the blindfold on her face and her sword. Classic sword, wearing a toga. Let's break down some of the symbolism here, right? Lady Justice, it says from the Latin justitia. It's an allegorical personification of the moral force in judicial systems. So what they're saying is that this woman right here is supposedly, allegedly, supposed to represent what's going on behind that building right behind her, which is the courthouse, aka the boat, where you receive your charges and stuff like that. Anyways, so Lady Justice is supposed to represent the status of our court systems, our judicial systems, morality, their level of morals, basically. Are they good? Are they bad? Her attributes are scales, a sword, and sometimes a blindfold. She often appears as a pair with Prudentia. Now, I'm going to get to those symbols in a minute. Let's talk about Prudentia real quick. I've referenced Prudentia in the past. Anne Marie Penton, good to see you. All right, so Prudentia, not a good image here, but basically she's always seen as holding onto a snake in one hand and looking into a mirror in the other hand. I've referenced her a few times. And it says here, Prudentia, or prudence, means the ability to govern and discipline oneself through the use of reason. Now, I've noticed quite often, those two, Justice, Lady Justice, and Prudence, used to be inseparable. I found many ancient drawings and pictures and statues and stuff where they were always one next to the other. But over time, they separated the two. And Prudentia, or Prudence, was lost, essentially. She doesn't show up that often anymore. Now it's just Lady Justice with her blindfold and scales and sword, right? Interesting stuff. So check this out. There's also, she goes by another name called Themis, or Demis. Demis is disregarded. I'm sorry, when Themis, Lady Justice, when our sense of justice, right, our good standing morals are disregarded, according to, some, what is that? I think it's Greek or Greco-Roman. I can't tell. Anyways, according to these old ways, when the goddess Themis, I want to say it's Olympic. Yeah. I'm pretty sure it's Greek. Anyways, when the goddess Themis is disregarded, when we turn a blind eye to real justice, Nemesis brings just and wrathful retribution. So when this goddess of justice dies, that is right around the same time that this other goddess is going to come and clean house to punish people, essentially, for getting rid of this pure and just goddess called Justice. Here is a portrayal of Nemesis. Right? She kind of reminds me of the weeping angels in Doctor Who. But check this out. Right next to her, do you see what she's holding on to? Remember, this person, the humanoid figure, is almost never the god or the goddess or whatever, the angel or whatever. It's usually the things that they're holding on to that represent what they really are. She's holding on to a wheel with 8 spokes on it, which represents the depressurization point up in the sky when we go through these apocalyptic cycles, when the world's atmosphere depressurizes. Hold on, I feel weird not being able to see the chat, so let me just scooch it over a bit. Just in case I mess something up and people are like, we can't hear you, or you know what I mean, something like that. All right, continuing on, Nemesis. Here's another example of Nemesis. Let's zoom in on this one just for a second. So this is who shows up when we disregard justice. Nemesis flies in, holding on to her snakes from above, coming down from above, and a flame, right? So she brings retribution. She brings a reckoning to those who have disregarded justice, but in the form of fire from the sky. So it's a sort of cartoonification of the plasma apocalypse, Medusa, etc. Right? So this is another one of Nemesis. As you can see here, she holds up the time, right? The time up in one hand, and then on the other hand, as you see, also there's one hand up and one hand down. We're going to come back to that. She's holding plasma in this other hand. Check this out. You could call it fire, but fire is plasma. Check this out. She's totally holding on to some plasma right there in her other hand. And then down here by her feet, I don't know if I could zoom in that low, but she's standing on the same 8-spoked wheel, basically. Okay, so that's her symbol, her symbolic element. Now let's get back to Lady Justice. What's up with the blindfold? Let's talk about that. I feel that most people I haven't encountered have always thought that this was the way. That Lady Justice has always had a blindfold on. Or like we read earlier, sometimes she has a blindfold, sometimes she doesn't. Why? Where's the consistency with the goddess? You know what I mean? Hold on. Where is the consistency? Why does she have a blindfold sometimes and then she doesn't other times? I mean, is she blind when she doesn't have the blindfold? I want to examine this real quick. Lady Justice and her blindfold. Here's an example of Lady Justice, an older statue where she doesn't have the blindfold. I would also pay close attention to where the symbols on these statues and paintings are located and what they're doing in relationship to one another, because they're telling us another story. All right, cool. We also got the origin of the blindfold is unclear, but it seems to have been added. At first, there was no blindfold. It was added to indicate the tolerance or ignorance to abuse of the law by the judicial system. Let that sink in real quick. Let me say that one time in my own words. The reason that we see the blindfold on Lady Justice today is because it was added to represent that the courts are corrupt. Period. Like, that was the reason. Okay, you can look it up all over the place on the internet. Do your research and check it out, but you'll find exactly what I'm showing you right here. That's the reason it was added, and they kept it right there. At first, they're trying to say, "Oh, you know, it was some hoodlums that like maybe put a blindfold on one, and they just went with that, even though they were clearly trying to send the wrong message." They've manipulated that today. They've kept that blindfold purposefully, knowing what it represents. They've kept it, and they've taught us, they have told us and instructed us through the education system that, oh, well, now it represents something to me. It's different. To me, it just means that justice is blind. It doesn't see black people and white people and Mexicans and Chinese people, or it doesn't see, that's not what it is. Like, you can say to me all you want, but that's not the original reason. The original reason is because it was saying to you straight up, like, justice has gone wrong. There is no justice. You know what I mean? Continuing on, it says, she is, who is this? It's going back to Themis, another version of the Lady Justice. Jared Poole. Thank you, Jared. Super appreciate you. All right, so going back, it says she is the goddess and personification of justice. I would even go further than that. There is an energy, there is a frequency that goes along with these good qualities, like justice, okay? So it's a personification of a frequency, of an energy, you could also say of a light. She's the goddess and personification of justice, divine order, fairness, law, and custom. And her symbols include the scales of justice. I believe that all of these qualities represent the things that are imbued to us, is that how you say that? That are given to us, the things that we experience when the light returns to the world, when our world is filled and inundated with electromagnetic activity, aka magic, spirit, energy, whatever you want to call it. These are all things that we experience. Goodness comes back. Divine order comes back. We're all kind of on the same page. There's telepathy and there's all kinds of conditions that change that add to the goodness of the world. But my research indicates that the world is filling up with positive energy. And I'm just talking electrically, positive and negative. Like it's filling up with positive energy, which turns into the physical positivity, you know what I mean? And it becomes a golden age, etc. This is also the time when like laws are issued from the mountain of the gods, the holy mountain, where typically these goddesses of wisdom reside. They are seen as the princesses who are locked away inside of a castle or a rampart or a tower, and that they need to be rescued. They need to be released, and so that the world can prosper once again. Continuing on, it says, the personification of justice, balancing the scales, dates back to the goddess Mahat. And I just pronounce it Mahat, so you can pronounce it however you like to. What's up, Gary Feltham in the chat? I see you. All right, personification of justice, Mahat. Let's check out this ancient Egyptian Mahat. Now, in this drawing up above, you can't see it, but it says, this is an image from the Book of the Dead. Anubis, weighing the Ka, which is kind of like chi. It's like your heart energy. It's your vibe. Okay, it's your spirit energy, which we are all painting and shaping right now, currently, as you watch this video, and always. Okay, we're constant. Our soul, I think, this is me personally, I think our soul is constantly changing and stuff. That this body is like a cocoon, and we're allowing ourselves to be shaped. We're shaping ourselves, inside of it. Anyways, Anubis is weighing out the Ka against the feather of truth. The feather of truth. We're going to come to that in a bit. Osiris, or Osiris, gives the final judgment. Thoth writes down Osiris's verdict, and Amit is lying in wait. Let's go over this real quick. I want to kind of zoom in on these real quick. I want to share this with you because this is a pretty interesting depiction here. First off, we got, let's see, who was this? Anubis. So we got Anubis, the jackal-headed god here. See him? He's holding hands. He's bringing somebody into the time of judgment. The time of judgment is whenever you have some sort of celestial scales, which we'll come back to, and your heart is weighed against the weight of this feather of Mahat, which is said, by the way, keep this in mind, we're going to come back to this too, is an ostrich feather. Interesting. I'm going to come back to that ostrich thing. But anyways, I believe that the feather is actually one of the cartoonifications, or one of the symbols that this cosmic beam or staff or rod that shoots up out of the land, it starts to make little striations off of the side of it, right? Little eddies of plasma that build up, and it's got all kinds of plasmoids and stuff inside of it. So it creates different images. One of those is it looks like a ladder, and sometimes it looks like a bush that's burning, and sometimes it looks like actually scales. I'll show you how it can look like scales too. These exact scales. So that was Anubis. Right here is Amit. I'm not sure how to pronounce that one, but Amit. A-M-M-I-T. So he is the eater of souls. Mag of Cascadia gave me $20 and says, for you and your family, thanks, Jay. Consistency and perspective. Cheers. Oh, that's sweet. Thank you. Super appreciate you. So here's Amit. He's getting ready to eat the soul. He's the eater of the souls, and he is located in wherever this place is that they're doing the whole judgment day weighing out of the souls, right? Keep an eye on Amit because he's next. We're going to break him down in just a second. Anubis is over there helping him out, weighing things out. Now, keep in mind also, this could be a symbolic element of actual physical events where things float and become light as a feather, stiff as a board, however you remember that old game? When things float, when there's an increased buoyancy factor in our world and things actually float with that feather. You know what I mean? That feather is seen in the sky, and that's when everything floats up. All right, so if we go over here, we got Thoth or Thoth, who's writing down everything, all the findings and whatnot. It seems reasonable to me that if our body is capable of containing information, it's also capable of coding and storing information, right? In the form of everything you do, like ever. So keep that in mind, and imagine what the soul's capable of storing, you know? Let's see. I think this is Osiris's son, Horus, over here on the side. So he's taken him up to his dad. Here's Osiris, which I believe represents the blue beam. That the Squatterman, we'll come back to the Squatterman symbolism or petroglyph here towards the end. But here's Osiris being attended to, chilling. And check this out. This is interesting too, right? Somebody in the comments asked me to look up that Egyptian light bulb and stuff like that, which kind of blooms from a lotus blossom or a lotus feather. This is interesting too, because he's sitting on something that has a similar flower that's blossoming from it. But out of it are these 4 figurines, these 4 pillars, you could say, these 4 personified columns, possibly, that are on the throne of Osiris, aka the blue beam, right? The 4 creatures, the 4 beings that surround the throne of God. All right, so let's focus real quick. We're going to leave Lady Liberty for just a moment. I want to focus on this creature right here, this little Phanazoid-looking dog, okay? I've talked about hellhounds in the past and devil dogs and whatnot, right? They're some of my favorite subsections of Phantazoids. So I want to talk about this one. This one right here eats the souls of the dead, basically. It is implied that he can read your karmic discharge, that he can see your spirit or your aura. And I've hypothesized many times that those creatures from the heavenly places and possibly even the hollows of the earth, that they have been exposed to so much electromagnetic energy that it's possible that that becomes a way of life for them, that they sense electromagnetic energy, even seeing into other spectrums that we do not, and possibly being able to see who's good, who's bad, just like Santa Claus, right? So this is Amet. I find it interesting because if you put a D in front of Amet, right, the letter D in the old languages meant a door, right? It was just a character, a drawing of a door, basically. So if you put a door or a D in front of Amet, it's damn it. Isn't that funny? It's damn it. So he represents those types of Phantazoids, creatures, etc., chimera, you can call them whatever you like to, that are said to be located towards the far west, or aka the North Pole. It's the far west in the old world. And that they came up out of the hollow recesses of the earth. Now, they didn't just stay in the far west. They actually ventured. You can find legends all across the world that reference these types of devil dogs, these hellhounds. And it's not that they were always bad. I like to call them devil dogs and hellhounds. I mean, I was in the Marine Corps, so, you know, it comes naturally to say that for me. But it doesn't mean they were bad just because they're devil dogs or hellhounds. You could say monsters too. It doesn't mean that they're bad. This is another example here. This is called the Jizi. I'm just going to call it that. And it says the Jizi possesses the innate ability to distinguish right from wrong. And when it finds corrupt officials, it will ram them with its horn and devour them. It was known as a symbol of justice. Ancient Chinese and Japanese emperors, various leaders from all parts of Asia and even Russia and stuff like that, they have these types of figures and figurines today that represented the physical, actual animals or Phantazoids that they had caught and tried to domesticate or develop some sort of friendship with, right? Or some sort of agreement with, you know, like I'll feed you or whatever. And they used them quite often times whenever people got in trouble. They would bring them before the emperor or whatnot, and then he would have his little psychic devil dog or whatever that could just read the aura and know instantly, like, is this person good or bad? Are they lying or telling the truth, you know? And if they were lying, it would go after them. It would ram them. It would attack them and stuff like that. Here's a much better picture of one. So as you can see, they try to draw them in different ways. Essentially, it has the form of what I call a dog. It looks like a dog. It kind of acts like a dog. It's got the feeling of a dog, but it's not a dog. Could it be the ancient ancestors of what we call dogs today? I think that's a possibility. But anyways, this one's they're usually drawn as like different animal parts and stuff like that, which I find is consistent with people when they experience phantazoids or otherworldly creatures in the past. They just slap on whatever body parts from animals that they are familiar with. This is another example. It's called the Keelin. I'm not sure how to pronounce that one either, but I'm going to call it Keelin. Now it says here this is a Chinese guard dog or phantazoid guard dog. And in Chinese mythology, it's said to appear with the imminent arrival or passing of a sage or illustrious ruler, just like the arrival of the blue beam is the apocalyptic event, which is the ultimate ruler, and then the passing of that blue beam, when it retracts and goes into the world to charge once more. Those are the two times when these creatures all of a sudden magically just show up in our world. Here's another good example. I like this one the best. As you can see, sometimes they resemble pigs and other animals too, right? But this one right here definitely resembles, it's got like a lower half, sort of a scaly pig body with a lion face. They have these manes. Quite often these devil dogs have like sort of a lion's mane. So sometimes they give them lion's faces. Many times they have horns and stuff like that. This one says that the Keelin is depicted throughout a wide range of Chinese art, sometimes with parts of their bodies on fire. Okay. So are they actually on fire, just chilling on fire in the real world? Or are they inundated with energy so that they are glowing? You know what I mean? So that their souls have so much energy that they glow, just like we would also glow and become the shining ones or whatnot. If your soul was charged and amplified, light could come right out of your eyes, you know, if that were the case. So these creatures were drawn with fire around them sometimes. Legends tell that the Keelin have appeared in the garden of the legendary Yellow Emperor and in the capital of the Emperor Yao. Both events bore testimony to the benevolent nature of the rulers. Let me explain what that means. These creatures showed up in the courtyard of these rulers, and they didn't attack them, and they didn't try to kill them or anything, and they just hung out. So the people, knowing that these creatures could read your auras, were like, oh, sweet, we must have a good emperor. That's good news, you know what I mean? So it goes on to say, it has also been told that the birth of the great sage Confucius, which, by the way, I didn't know this, but did you know Confucius's real name is not Confucius? It's like Kung Fu Ji or something like that. It's Kung Fu something. It's interesting. So it says that when Confucius was born, it was foretold by the arrival of the Keelin, etc. Here's another example. This one's really interesting too. You may have seen these all over the place. People like to use them as decorations, you know, because sometimes they're cute or whatever, you know. But originally it was not like that. Originally, these were guards. Okay. These were real, I think, in my opinion. Okay. I could see these being real phantazoid creatures that actually walked about the premises, you know, and protected things. They were guard dogs, some of the first ones. This one's called the Pixu. It's a really interesting one and what it's going to lead us into. A Pixu is an earth and sea variation, particularly an influential and auspicious creature for wealth, and it is said to have a voracious appetite exclusively for gold, silver, and jewels, kind of like a dragon, right? Dragons are those creatures that are, you know, I'm going to say there's two types of dragons for me, okay? There's those things that are plasma, and they're just sky snakes, and they undulate through the sky, and you could see them as sky worms and dragons and stuff, but they're not actual physical dragons, how they're portrayed. And then there are phantazoids. There are a few phantazoids that look like how we draw traditional dragons today. And they may have combined the two quite often. But this one right here has an appetite for gold, silver, and jewels, just like those energetically charged dragons that are attracted to electrically conductive metals. Now check this out. Another word for the Pixu is the Bixi. Bixi. I wonder what the root word is there. The Bixi, which is the female version of the Pixu, it means to ward off evil spirits. The female of the species wards off evil. Pixu. Interesting, because we had like one that kind of had the body of a pig. Pixu, Bigzu. You see what I mean? I'm kind of stretching it, but I'm just saying. I could see if there was a relationship there. Last but not least, check this out. This is kind of hard to see, so I'm just going to read it for you. There is one ancient stone sculpture variation found with hooves, but all Pixu have wings. For the most part, every single one of them has wings. So they're like little piggy thingies with wings, basically. Many have bifurcated or split tails that hang low and downward and cover their rear. A representative metaphor that they hold gold inside of their stomachs but will not let it out. So basically they eat like valuable metals, right? Imperial Pixu, used during the Qing Dynasty or Qing Dynasty, developed the physical characteristic of a fatter, more rotund body, indicating that a stomach could be loaded with unlimited amounts of gold and all forms of wealth and good fortune. So sometime around the Qing Dynasty, they started changing how they looked, and they started cartoonifying them to symbolize that they could hold, you know, our Pixus can hold more gold than your Pixus or whatever. So they started making them kind of pot-bellied, basically. Due to their similar appearances, Pixu are often confused with stone lions and Qilin, which I think there's good reason to confuse them. But they can easily be distinguished, or the cartoonification of them can, from those other two animals by its pair of feathered wings with which it can fly between heaven and earth. It goes on to say one story of the Pixu says that it violated a law of heaven, which is up there, right? By defecating on the floor of heaven. Now, in order for this Pixu to do that, it has to be up there on the floor of heaven, above us, okay? So it went to the bathroom up there in heaven. It wasn't supposed to, and when it was found out, it was punished by a spanking from the Jade Emperor, right? The spanking was hard enough. I think that the Jade Emperor is referencing the green aurora borealis and telling us where these animals came from, which was dropping down from the sky in the North Pole during the plasma apocalypse. The spanking was hard enough to cause its anus to be permanently sealed. The Jade Emperor further declared that the diet of the Pixu would be restricted to gold, silver, and jewels, giving us our modern piggy banks, essentially, right? Yeah, I love that connection right there. Anyways, what is it pronounced? Piao? I'm gonna pronounce it however I like to pronounce it right now. I don't have when I'm on the fly, I don't have time to double check if you're right or wrong or not, or something. But I believe you, Piao. I'm just gonna say Pixu. Anyways, flying pigs also, so it gives rise to piggy banks. It gives rise to flying pigs, right? Or at least these legends that we have. And then people also say things like when pigs fly, just like in the same manner they say, maybe once in a blue moon. You know what I mean? Where do those types of things come from? Because there is a time when the moon turns blue, but it's a specific time. I'm not talking about atmospheric conditions and stuff. I'm talking about the moon turns solid blue, right? There's a time when pigs fly, or there's these Pixu, or whatever they're called, seen as dropping down, along with many other phantazoids and creatures, by the way, okay? Dropping down out of the sky, floating down from above. They become the fallen ones and demons and creatures and stuff that come down from the heavens above. And they're seen as being kicked out from the heavens above for, you know, doing something they weren't supposed to, right? All right, let's move forward. See what else we got here. Typically made of stone, here's another one, the Chinese guardian lions. I'm sure you've seen these. These are a bit more popular. These look like lions that have been working out. Like they're buff. They have huge muscles. Typically made of stone. They're also known as stone lions or shishi. They're also known as colloquial English. Why don't they just say English? In English, they're called lion dogs or foo dogs, which is interesting. Going back to that foo word. I believe the word foo, if I remember correctly, translates into like skill, basically, right? Like Kung Fu or whatever, or Confucius. The concept of these foo dogs, and it also reminds me of Foo Fighters. You know what I mean? Like the Foo Fighters or whatever, which are aliens as well, dropping down out of the sky. The concept, which originated and became popular in Chinese Buddhism, features a pair of highly stylized lions. Now, it doesn't really talk about this a lot, but I want to point something out about this particular phantazoid or creature, right? On one side, they usually have like one of them's a female, it's got a little baby version. And on the other side, this one's probably the male because it's got this ball. It always holds on to this ball. Same as many dragons in Asia. They're always seen with a big fat ball in their mouth. They're just carrying around this ball, right? Because before dragons looked the way that we imagine them today, like the Lord of the Rings dragons, they didn't have arms to hold on to stuff. They didn't have legs to hold on to stuff. They were worms. Okay, so they put the ball in their mouth. Why? Because it's plasma. Some of this stuff represents just straight up plasma or plasma beings, right? Beings that are charged with plasma. But you have like the front part, which is ball lightning, and then it leaves a trail as it continues to go. So they associate these creatures with plasma, and that's my take on what that ball represents. I'm sure other people have other ideas too. All right, let's get back to Lady Liberty and check out the sword. We already checked out the blindfold. Let me just remind you, that means that the justice system does not see you. They're like John Cena. They don't see you. They don't see justice. They have become blind, and that's all bad. I don't care how people try to spin it to you. That is a bad thing when you see the blindfold on this statue. Okay? It's not good, ever. Now, let's look at some other stuff, like this sword, right? I want to take a look at this sword. Now, I found this interesting, right? I used to live in Colorado Springs, and they're all over the town. There's all these like statues in the worst possible places, like in the middle of the road in places and stuff like that. And oftentimes they have a person on top of a horse. It's a horse statue with somebody riding it. Well, I started researching those, and I learned that there is this rumor or this old wives' tale that depending on how many of those legs are touching the ground on the horse statue, it tells you, or it should give away, how the person riding it died. If it's up on back two legs, that means, they say that the person died in battle. If it's on all 4 feet, then the person died outside of battle, etc., right? So I wondered, couldn't the same thing apply to other humanoid statues that we have, especially ones like this that sometimes have a blindfold, sometimes the sword is up in the air, sometimes it's down? So let's check it out. The sword represented authority in ancient times and conveys the idea that justice can be swift and final. It says it represents authority. I'm going to go a step further and say it represents truth, okay? There's two types of people, right? There's those who will see the sword and they'll think of physical making people, like just using a sword to fight, basically, a physical sword. Then there are those types of people who see the symbolic element of the sword, which is truth, that cuts through to everything, right? So for me, the sword represents truth. Now let's take a look at this, right? I'm going to show you various examples of where the sword is located when you see this Lady Justice. I believe that the sword is the blue beam. It's Excalibur. It is the sword in the stone that comes up out of the unmovable mountain, Mount Meru. Whatever you want to call it, it is that blue beam, and it represents when the blue beam is up and when the blue beam is down, when there is justice and goodness and positivity flooding our world, and when there's not so much, right? So here's one example of Lady Justice. I'm going to show you various ones. This one's really cool, actually. She's totally naked, and on half of her body, you can see right through her. Check this out. She's pregnant in this one too, and you can see the baby inside of her. You can see her muscles and stuff only on one side of her. On the other side, it's just regular. But she's holding her sword high up in the air. This is one of the only ones of Lady Justice where I found her just putting that sword first. You know what I mean? Like He-Man or She-Ra or something. And then the scales are way back behind her butt, right? The scales represent like the court systems and stuff. So this is one of my favorite ones. It's kind of morbid and weird looking, but I like it. It means it's transparent, okay? Justice is transparent, not blind, okay? Like truth is transparent. It has nothing to hide. Here's another version where she's holding both of these out equally and the sword is pointed up. She's got the scales held out. There is no blindfold on this one. She's dressed modestly, we'll say, and she's got her crown. Now, of course, when we compare something like that symbolically to something like this, you can start to ask questions about what they're trying to say to you, right? That sword that represents truth is like being put almost down on the ground. The further down she is, that's the worse it is, okay? You want her standing proud, chest out, confident, looking up, sword straight up in the air. I mean, all of those qualities are messages that convey things to us. This right here, that's not the courtroom I would like to appear in. You know what I mean? That's not good. She's blind. She's hobbled. She's falling over. Here's another one where the sword is just down. Oftentimes, she's holding up those scales like, I'm going to judge you. It's all about judgment and whatnot, but there's no truth. How do you judge without truth? The sword is down, right? And she's got the blindfold on too. I take note of that too. Sometimes, the blindfold's kind of hit and miss, and where these things are, there's always anomalies and exceptions, but I've found that there is correlation between these symbolic elements and how often they match up with one another. Here's another one. Now in this one, she's modestly dressed. She's got her sword held aloft high in the sky, no blindfold whatsoever, and the sword comes before, or it's higher than, the scales themselves, right? Surrounded by little cherubs or whatever they are. Now this one, she's basically showing everyone, here, look at this, and then don't look at this. She's holding the sword off to the side. It's way down low, right? Here is another one. She's holding the scales up high. I find it interesting how they put the sword in this one, right? It's facing upward, right? So at first, you see an upward sword, but it's way down there. You know what I mean? It's way down there, which means that the truth, they're trying to give you an appearance of the truth, like, hey, yeah, the sword's up, but the sword's way down here. They put the truth way down below that. Here's another one. Check her out. She's just chilling on the sword like it's nothing, right? She's actually leaning up against it, using it like furniture or something, you know what I mean? Let's go back. Let's go back to some of the first depictions that I could find of Lady Justice on ancient coins. On this one, you can see that at first, she wasn't portrayed with the sword. It was a staff. It was a beam or a rod, stauros, which I believe might actually be related to the word star as well. But they had a staff, right? So she had a staff because that staff represented that blue beam of energy that shoots up out of inner earth cavernous systems. Here's another one with a staff. On the right, you can see there. On the left, they got their Phrygian caps going on. Here's another one with her holding a staff and the scales way down low. Here's another one with the staff and the scales way down low. Here's another one, but in this one, it's a cornucopia, which is very interesting. Off the top of my head, I'm just going to say every single time I've seen cornucopias, which is popping up strangely a lot in my life lately. Like I was at the thrift store the other day and I saw a huge cornucopia for sale or whatever. It's crazy. Anyways, so this cornucopia corn is actually the word horn or horn, and it means a horn. It means a spike, essentially. It's a horn of plenty. Okay, this is the spike that gives food to the world. This is symbolic of the blue beam, okay, or the horn of the world, the spike that shoots up out of the earth. And it brings with it growth. Everything starts to grow. The earth returns to a garden state, etc. So the cornucopia was also used, etc. The toga, what's she wearing, right? Not just what is she wearing, but I don't want to say flaunting. Sometimes she is flaunting. But how is she rocking her outfit, right? What's the feeling that we get? Is she wearing something that is going to be more apt to like turn certain people on? Or is she wearing something that's more modest, right? The Greco-Roman garment symbolizes the status of philosophic attitudes that embody justice. Okay, so depending on how she's dressed, that should directly reflect our philosophy in the courtroom, basically, right? So, for example, we'll take Lady Liberty in the form of the Statue of Liberty. Very modestly dressed. She's got her whole robe and stuff, you know what I mean? Like, you can see she's got her female curves going on and stuff, but it's modest, right? All right, I'm going to come back to that one too. Or you can dress her up like this, which is much less modest, right? I'm not saying that, I'm not trying to accuse her of anything. She's a statue. You know what I mean? I'm not trying to accuse the person that made it, but it means something, right? And it means many things, actually. But the more of these images you put together, the more context for the entire message we have. In this one, she's basically got pasties on, right? So both sides are kind of torn down and she's kind of flaunting it all. Now, I'll tell you this. In the olden days, that was not something they did. I've found in my research so far that in many places that women, when they showed their bare breasts, that it wasn't to, turn on men or, try to flirt with people or anything like that. It was actually a sign of mourning. They would rip their clothes and they would expose their breasts and stuff. And people, it was kind of self-inflicted. It was a form of self-inflicted shame, basically, to be naked in front of all these people or whatever, right? So that's when you expose both of them. The transparency factor is there when you're exposing both of them. You're being transparent, just like the truth, right? Because ultimately, clothes are a deception, right? Clothes are stupid. I think the clothes are dumb. I mean, they're cool and they're fun and they're useful, but to make it a law, you know, like you have to wear clothing and stuff, like, I don't know. That's not a law that I would make, you know, especially in a garden paradise or something. Here's another version of her. This time she's just got one breast exposed. Why? Right? It reminds me of the Amazonians, the Amazon women, who the legend says, I don't agree with the legend, okay, but the legend says that all these tough Amazonian chicks, you know, wanted to be the best archeresses or whatever, so they cut off one of their breasts so that it wasn't in the way or whatever. I'm like, nah, that probably did not happen. I don't know. I'm disagreeing with that one. That's fine. Anyways, how is she dressed? You know what I mean? Here's another one. It's exposing just one of her breasts. So it could be an indicator as far as the morality goes, right? That she's tempting people, right? She's tempting the courts and stuff like that. Basically, she's seen as a seductress on one hand, right? I'm going to tell you another theory that I have on that too in just a bit. I don't know what's going on in this one, but that's an interesting one. I just want to share that one with you. Here's an interesting painting I found too. So it's not that she's exposing one breast in order to breastfeed, right? I've researched many different images. I could not find any images of Lady Justice actually feeding a child or a baby by exposing her breast and getting ready to feed. I don't believe that that's what that was, because as you can see here, this girl right here is doing that, and she's got both of them out. The kids are there. It's all appropriate, right? That's what's supposed to be done. But she doesn't have one. Now let's take a look at what else we got going on here in addition to that. First of all, I don't know who that is. Some dude with a long beard. And he's over here totally looking off on this direction. He's not paying attention to what's going on over here. This girl's like, really? Can you see her face? You can't see her. Anyways, let's go back to Lady Justice here. Now, she's holding on to the scales. It's kind of hard to see there, but here's one scale. Here's the other scale. She's holding on to the little divider. And in the other hand, at first you might think it's like a sword or something. This is an ostrich, right? You see the ostrich head up here and the long plasma neck or whatever, and a huge body. I just want to say, before I go on talking about ostriches like they're just normal and accepted and whatever, to me, ostriches, however you say ostrich, I mean, I want to say ostrich, like with the G, but it's not. It's with the CH. It's weird. It's a weird word, strange word. But check this out. Ostriches, to me, are just as mind-blowing and crazy that they even exist in this world as lions and bears and tigers or whatever, right? Giant versions of little animals that we already have, like cats and dogs and stuff, right? This is a giant bird. This doesn't freak anyone out. It's like this is just, I feel like it should be on the news. Like check out this giant cat and this giant bird. They prove the gigantism existed, you know, and they obviously are survivors from the time. Anyways, I did a study on the word ostrich. I don't think that's up next, but it's really interesting. Oh, and remember, she's holding the ostrich exactly like the feather of Mahat was said to be an ostrich feather. In mythology, Astrea, another name for Lady Justice, the celestial virgin, was the last of the immortals to live with humans during the Golden Age. So, the last blue beam before they all start retracting, right? I imagine they don't just all suck in all at once all around the world, right? I imagine that they have varying degrees of disappearing and getting sucked back into the earth. Astrea, the celestial virgin, was the last of the immortals to live with humans during the Golden Age, one of the old Greek religion's 5 deteriorating ages of man. In the Iron Age, the world was illegally rampant. The world was bad, okay? People only coveted gold, family and friends did not trust each other, and according to Ovid, Astrea abandoned the earth during the Iron Age. We've got many stories about gods and goddesses just taking off. Like, you know, just letting us know, oh, no worries, I'll be back, you know, but the second they leave, things go downhill. Things get bad usually, right? And anyways, let me continue on. Fleeing from the new wickedness of humanity, she ascended to heaven to become the constellation Virgo, right? So imagine this. You've got this blue beam at Mount Meru and others around the world, right? But you've got this beam of energy that's constantly just shooting up into the world, creating all these different shapes up there in the sky. And when it is finished, it continues going up. It's just, maybe it's cut off and it looks like it's leaving because now all of a sudden you can see the bottom of it and it's going up and up and up until it's just done or whatever. I don't know. Maybe it's just seen like that as ascending into heaven in that manner. So she goes up, becomes the constellation Virgo. The nearby constellation Libra, which is the scales, right, reflected her symbolic ascension with Dike, who in Latin culture is Justia, is said to preside over the constellation. So basically, Dike, all of these gods and goddesses, they tend to have a progeny of people who are exactly like them, right? So whatever the blue beam was called and known as when it was up, right? It will die, it will descend, it will go back into the inner earth, and then their child will be born in their place, and they will sort of pick up the mantle of their mother or father. Kim, hey, welcome to my channel, Kim. Thanks for subscribing. That was awesome. All right, cool. According to the myth, Estrella will one day come back to the earth, bringing with her the return of the utopian golden age, of which she was the ambassador. Right? That is that blue beam energy shooting up, coming back, returning. Now, let's shift gears and check out the Statue of Liberty. This is really interesting. This is a plaque that's written on the Statue of Liberty. I'm going to make it bigger and read it to you. The whole Statue of Liberty is very interesting to me. I mean, let's just check it out real quick, right? It's blue. I mean, they had to have known that the copper that they used was going to change colors. They put it on a tiny island in the middle of the ocean. Like, that's going to turn blue or greenish blue, right? Whatever the color is. So purposefully done, purposefully chosen. They have it on top of this solid altar. This is the throne seat of God or the throne of the goddess, etc. It's got those same 4 pillars, aka 4 creatures surrounding the throne of God or the goddess, etc. All right, let's read this. It says, this is written on the Statue of Liberty, the new Colossus. Now keep in mind, the old Colossus was that male figure, that male figure that had 1 foot on one land and the other foot on the other land, and in between was the ocean, right? And just stood there between those 2 lands, right? I believe that that's symbolic of the anode island and the cathode island from which subsidiaries of the blue beam emerge. They come up, positive and negative. They're attracted to one another. They create, when they hit, the feet of the Squatterman figure. They create the bottom half, and that's why Colossus had to stand on one island and on the other island. And this is also another reason why these gods cannot float, walk on water. I mean, not walk on water, but they can't really move. They're stuck in a region. They have to stay in that region. All right, now let's read this. The new Colossus, not like the brazen giant of Greek fame, with conquering limbs astride from land to land, here at our sea-washed sunset gates shall stand. A mighty woman with a torch, whose flame is the imprisoned lightning, and her name, Mother of Exiles. So check this out. I want to point this out. A mighty woman with a torch, whose flame, that flame at the top, is not fire. Not regular fire. It's not a regular torch at all. A mighty woman with a torch, whose flame is the imprisoned lightning. This is mind-blowing to me as I'm reading it and sharing it with you right now. Okay? It's plasma. It's electricity, right? That's her flame, is the imprisoned lightning. And no, I don't think it's referring to, it's just talking about how like they wanted to set up, a lighthouse and use her as a lighthouse and stuff. We're going to get deep into the Statue of Liberty in just a second. Sounded kind of weird, but all right. Anyways, moving forward. From her beacon hand glows worldwide welcome. This is all representative not of a statue in New York, but of the blue beam of Mount Meru. It tells you this. Her mild eyes command the air-bridged harbor that the twin cities frame. The twin cities, anode and cathode, right? The twins. Keep, ancient lands, your storied pomp, cries she with silent lips. So, ancient lands, the old lands, keep your legendary attitudes. or your pomp. Your pomp is like, sort of like showing off, basically. Your legendary stories. Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free. The wretched refuse, trash, of your teeming shore. Send these, the homeless, tempest-tossed, to me. I lift my lamp beside the golden door. It's not talking about a statue. It's not talking about welcoming immigrants to the new world because, yay, America. That's not what it's about. And I very much doubt that's how immigrants felt about America and all of that. America was founded on all kinds of not fun, not good, not positive, not helpful, really bad things. Okay, when you start looking into the origins of the United States of America and the corporation and company that is called that, and how it started and how it all really began, it really kind of actually upsets me that there's sort of this running joke about Australia, and people are like, oh, it's full of criminals, you know what I mean? They reference that in The Princess Bride, and I never liked that. I don't like that at all. Because if you look up how America was founded, it's all criminals, okay? They just kept on sending criminals to come over here and be slaves. And it wasn't just black people, okay? All kinds of people and races from all over the world were just sending their trash. Okay, that's kind of judgmental. I'm not saying that just because the people were criminals that they were trash, but in their mind's eye, right? That's how the system saw them. They were just sending all their bad people out to America. If I were to guess, I have no idea what the numbers are, but I would guess it's more than, were sent off to Australia. Actually, the only reason they started sending people to Australia is because finally the Americans were like, oh, we got enough. We're good. Don't send any more. And then, they didn't want to listen. So we went to war with them, etc. So they started shipping out criminals and stuff like that to other countries too. And slaves too. Okay. It wasn't just slavery did not just, and this is my research indicates, okay, it wasn't just a bunch of black people who was sold into slavery on one boat that ended up in South America and they came up into the Virginia or whatever. And it happened to say we sold 20 black slaves or whatever. That's part of it. Yeah. But there's a lot of other races that were indentured servants, slaves, etc. All right, that's my little 2 cents on that. But look at that, tempest tossed, right? Send these, the homeless, the tempest tossed. Those who are tossed by the tempest, right? If you get sucked up in the sky and then you float back down and you're somewhere you don't know where you are and stuff, you look for that blue beam. That's how you know where to go. Otherwise, you're going to land in a world, you're going to be confused. The directions have all changed. The compass has changed. The land itself, the geography has been terraformed. You have no idea where to go. You might as well just stay where you are. You know what I mean? You don't know what direction you're walking in. Thinkers at work. Good to see you. Sorry, I'm getting kind of hyped up now, but man, the tempest tossed. You see the blue beam, you know where to go. You know where the place of safety is. Okay? That's what that's about. All right, continuing forward. Let's move forward. Fort Wood. I want to talk about Fort Wood real quick. So many people may have noticed that the base of the pedestal or the throne or whatever you want to call it, of the Statue of Liberty, which is weird that they even have one. Like, you don't really need that. It's already a giant statue. You know what I mean? It's because it represents Mount Meru, right? The actual statue represents the beam, the light, the goddess, and the pedestal that she stands on represents the physical portion of the earth, the opening that comes straight up, that tall and high and lofty mountain. Retinal, welcome. Good to see you. All right, so Fort Wood. There used to be a fort, a star fort, in that same exact location way before it was ever turned into the Statue of Liberty. And it was called Fort Wood. And it says, the Statue of Liberty's pedestal sits atop the remains of Fort Wood, originally one link in a chain of defenses protecting New York City and its vital harbor. The fort was built between 1808 and 1811 in the shape of an 11-pointed star and was occupied by the War Department as an army post until 1937, which, I mean, that checks out, I think, so far. If they had cannons and stuff like that, cannon fire from the 1800s, maybe late 1700s, I believe could go about a half a mile, maybe a mile, if you had like some crazy technology. But if you shot a cannonball, it could go at least about a half a mile, okay? On either side of Liberty Island, as it's affectionately called these days, it's about a half a mile to the closest land. So that stands to reason that they put a fort there to protect New York or whatever. And there's another star fort on the adjacent island. I think it's called Mayor's Island or the Mayor's Island or something like that. They also have a star fort. This one's, but this one has been filled in. Okay. So basically they tore the fort down. They kept the structure. They kept the walls. They filled that in. And then they used that as a base to the plateau or whatever, the thing that she's standing on, right? Here's another creepy image. I just want to share this one real quick. So this is Lady Justice, right? Being portrayed with, you see at the top up there, they got like this Monty Python hand of God reaching down from the clouds. That's funny, man. I love these old pictures. Let's see. Confringios in virga ferea, which I believe means something like lead them with a rod of iron or something like that. Which iron is really interesting too. So it's very possible that there are metallic mountains up towards the North Pole. Some of them seem to have been made out of copper. And some of them seem to be made out of iron, which is very interesting to me because of how copper turns that different colors and stuff. And the iron can be cast iron. It can turn black, which means Rupus Nigra could be like a cast iron mountain, basically, also making it magnetic. Now, check out the sword. There's flames coming up off the sword because that is no regular sword. It is not even a sword at all. It's the truth, okay? It's also, if it's anything, light. It's plasma. Okay. Obviously she's got one of her breasts revealed, but she's not looking like, she's trying to flirt with anybody. So I don't feel like I'm getting that from this particular image. Let's check this out. She's actually chained. She's got 7 chains attached to her. Each chain is wrapped around one of these characters, right? And I believe that they represent the 7 like deadly sins, right? So you got, I don't know what she would represent. Maybe she has a little baby there. So maybe she messed up and had a baby. And I don't know what the sin is there. But anyways, this guy's a glutton. So he's drinking. He's got a big old leg of some animal that he's just tearing apart. I don't know what this person's up to. This person's over here about to like eat a child or something crazy. This person looks pissed off and angry. They're eating some snake. They're probably plasma possessed or something. This person's missing their hands. So they're probably a thief, I would guess, because their hands were chopped off. And this person clearly has an issue with vanity. Right? All right, cool. So anyways, the purpose is, my point is that she's tied. She represents that blue beam. She represents a type of Jesus figure or Christ-like figure or savior figure, heroic person, heroine, etc. A heroine being like a female hero. Pardon me. Anthony just gave me $20. Holy cow. Let me read what Anthony says. He says, I really appreciate everything that you do. Thanks for the content. Wow. High five, Anthony. I super appreciate you. So, all right, let's check this out. So we have a correlation between some sort of God and some sort of anti-God. Okay. Or godlike being. Okay. Use whatever words you like. Some sort of hero, some sort of anti-hero. Thanks again, Anthony. Super appreciate you. And they are always connected with their 7 henchmen, their 7 bodyguards, their 7 witnesses, their 7 surrounding energetic forces, right? It seems to me that when the blue beam is up and the world is being filled with energy, this image would look totally different. She would be connected to 7 beautiful things, right? But whenever that beam retracts and goes back down into the earth, or when it starts to weaken, right, is whenever you see the fall, when you see sinfulness and bad things starting to, bad vibes, bad frequencies start procreating, there's more badness in the world, basically. All right, here's another version of it. This one, you can clearly see the ostrich right there that she's riding on top of and stuff. And let's talk about the Squatterman petroglyph and how that's related, right? So mostly I want to talk about how her position, right? She sometimes she'll have both hands up. Very rare. Usually it's one hand up, one hand down. It's the one hand up, one hand down symbolism that we went over in my Truth and Movie segment for Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. So check that out a little towards the end. Whenever Indiana Jones meets the dude who's guarding the holy chalice or whatever, we talk about the symbolism of the broken pillar, of the broken column. Okay. So I'm going to come back to that, right? So we see this type of an image in many petroglyphs worldwide. It is the blue beam that is shooting up, the anode and the cathode that are creating the legs, going back up, twisting back around, and you have what looks like a stick figure holding its arms up in the sky. Keep in mind, it's plasma, okay? So it's going to move about, it's going to twirl about, it's going to bend over sometimes. Sometimes it might have one arm, sometimes it might have two arms, etc., because it can disappear and reappear, okay? Here are some different variations of it. Right? And I want you to pay close attention to the two dots that it often has, usually right underneath its arms. Now, keep in mind also that it's not always just drawn as like a stick figure, okay? Those two dots would be typically, drawn right around its torso area, which means that if it's seen as being feminine, those two dots can represent breasts. It could be the female breasts. It all depends on how you see it. Basically, it all depends on your interpretation, right? Because it's not ultimately a woman. It's not a female. It's not a male. It's not a man or a woman, right? It might have male or female energy, but we're not talking about something that's physical. See, here's another example right here. You see that dot right there. You see another dot right here. Sometimes it has two dots. Sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it only has one. So we have a correlation with the Amazonians, right? Who were said to like cut off one of their breasts or whatever so they could shoot better with their arrows, which this is the god of arrows right here too, same as many other gods. Other times they have like an arm up and then they'll put this arm down, doing the whole Egyptian dance thing. I can't do it on video. You know what I mean? And then of course we got the circles underneath this one too, right? So this is plasma, I believe. My theory is that this is plasma. We have a source that's shooting up from the middle, Mount Meru right here. There's an anode mountain and a cathode mountain on either side. They go up and they twist around that central pillar, right? Giving us like the symbol for healing and ambulances and hospitals worldwide, basically, right? And then they got these little eddies, these little torus plasmoids on either side that are created by the currents, right? Of the rushing plasma that's going up and twisting about as it goes up. Now, if we have something like, let's say, an alternating current, or I don't know all the ins and outs of electricity, but let's say that you have one of those anode or cathode, which by the way, one of those is said to be much stronger in force. So when it creates an electrical arc, that side alone can almost complete the arc going all the way to the other side without the assistance of the other one for a short time. Or on the macrocosmic scale for a long time. And people would just see one of the columns disappear. They would just see a column that seems to be broken and gone, which means you could also have these little circles disappear and be gone, right? I sort of photoshopped it out just so you can get an idea of what it may have looked like and why they drew the goddess of wisdom, the goddess of justice, etc., as exposing only one breast, right? This is something that you could see on the cosmic scale. Now, let's bring it down to our scale. Let's come back down to Earth here. I'm going to show you some cool images. Many of these are from Hawaii, actually. I'm going to talk about that in just a minute, but check out this one right here. You can see a great example of these stick figures where they have, like this one only has one dot, right, underneath its arm right there, or you could see as being like one breast, right? This comes from Puako Petroglyph Archaeological Park in Hawaii. This is so awesome. Check this out. So the whole place looks exactly how you see it behind the sign. It's like baked ground. I believe it's actually just dried lava, like lava beds and stuff like that. But the ancient ancestors of the Hawaiians used this particular area to draw thousands of this. Mostly this. Thousands of stick people, right? All of them squatting down. They have an arm up or both arms up, or sometimes they're doing a little Egyptian thing like we showed, right? Here's another example of what it typically looks like. This is your typical Squatterman symbol. Let me tell you something. Check this out. There are over 3,000 of these spread across this area on the ground. You have to, I ask myself, why did they draw 3,000 of these on the ground? You know what I mean? Or carve them, right? Now, it is my thought, it's the exact same reason that others around the world in caves and rocks and stuff, they started drawing something that they knew was important, something they knew would one day disappear and nobody would believe them and it would be forgotten about. So they carved out something they knew was super important. They knew they had to write it down. They had to draw it out. Maybe the survivors had amnesia. Maybe they were imbued with telepathy, so they either forgot how to actually speak whatever guttural languages that they had at the time, and they went back to telepathy. Either way, they started drawing what they saw in the sky, okay? Many, many times. Sometimes it looked like a regular person. Sometimes they added arms and legs to it. Sometimes they had a few extra arms. Still the same torso going all the way up, but the arms shoot out. And it's got more arms than it should if they were just drawing and depicting a human person, right? They're not. They're depicting plasma. They're depicting electricity. And this is how electricity moves. It has a central portion, and then it branches out, and it branches out. Or at least that's how electricity can move. Here's another one. Looks like the dude's, saying hello or goodbye or something like that. But you'll notice the one arm up, one arm down. I would think this is also a reference to, the as above, so below that many of you come across. Here's the Egyptian dancing one over there on the side. Sometimes the arms are both up. Sometimes the arms are both down. Sometimes it's just one arm. Sometimes, look at all the different ones of these. Okay. I don't have all 3,000 of them, but there's so many, right? And here's another example. Same figure. This one doesn't have a head, and it actually shouldn't if you draw it the right way, because that beam does not have a head. Okay, it's got legs and it's got arms. The head portion of the beam is actually headless. Okay, it's headless. Its head is high above that beam, which is the red circle in the sky where the world has depressurized and the sky is blown open. Here's another version of it, but this time it's got these arms that just flow out of it from the sides and they go all the way back down to the ground. I think that's super interesting. I believe that they were drawing what they saw up in the sky, that it was plasma in nature. And this particular one reminded me of some other ones that I've seen before, where it looks like there's like this plasma or a snake or water or something that seems to be pouring out of this central entity, right? Just like the most popular one, Enki, the Lord of the Earth. Enki is drawn as this cosmic deity, and he's got these two water spouts flowing out of him from either side, which could be electrical arcing from the anode and the cathode, which touch the main god, the central god in the middle, in this case, Enki, who's hanging out with what looks like Janus over there on the side. I just took a quick picture. So if you want more information on this, I go over this in a lot of detail in this video that I did, Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. I'm taking pictures of what was back there on the wall. As you can see, they've got like a sort of Jesus-like, God-like character inside of an egg. He's got the arm up, the arm down, and then he's got these arcs coming from these four columns, same four columns that we referenced earlier. And it looks like there's plasma or, some form of liquid or energy or something that is making these arches on either side of him, connecting to the central God figure. Here's another version of it. Just want to share that with you. And is that it? Was that it? Where's my bonus round? I wanted to do a bonus. How fun. I like bonuses. I've seen other YouTubers are like, bonus. I'm like, oh, I love bonuses. I want to do a bonus. All right, so here's a bonus. It has nothing to do with the presentation. The presentation is over now. But I was researching stuff. Archaics actually did a really awesome video a while back showing you all these examples of various aquatic animals and marine life that was petrified. And the ones that really blew my mind, there was a jellyfish that I thought was awesome. Like a petrified jellyfish? How does that even happen? You know what I mean? I like the jellyfish. But all of the many, many pictures of petrified fish in the middle of eating other petrified fish blew my mind. I'm like, there's no way there's that many instances of petrified fish in the middle of eating another petrified fish. So I just looked it up on Google, just randomly, just fish eating fish fossil or whatever, right? There's like all kinds. Like, what are the odds? You know what I mean? That at that exact moment, some sort of thing would happen. Now, if you go by mainstream, I'm going to talk about this picture too, because this is not the fish eating a fish. But this led me to this, right? If you go by mainstream academia, they'll tell you like, oh, well, the fish was in the middle of eating another fish, and then all of a sudden, right as it was taking a bite, a bunch of mud just rolled over it for some reason out of nowhere. Maybe there was like a volcano nearby. You know what I mean? Like, it's the same stupid argument or apologetics every single time. I don't like it. It doesn't add up to me. And then when you have multiple examples of a fish just about to swallow another fish, and then they're flash frozen in time in rock, you got to start asking questions like, what happened, dude? Like, because clearly there was an event. Clearly something happened. And also, these are supposed to be in water. How in the hell is it rock all of a sudden, right? Did the water petrify? Which brought me to a study on like how thick, how watery does mud have to be in order to petrify from electricity? Before, you know what I mean? Like how much muddy water, if you have a bunch of mud, I believe that if you have a bunch of mud, right, and then you charge it with a strong enough electrical current that it can change the bonds and petrify it. Well, I wanted to say, well, where do I draw the line? Where's the gray area for that? Because can you just petrify water? You know what I mean? Seems like it. Seems like it's a possibility. Either that or the water was just so dirty from all of the debris and sludge and stuff that is also mixing around during the apocalypse that it just petrifies. It meets the conditions. I don't know. I found it to be super interesting. I'm like, wow. Fishes in the middle of eating other fishes are all freaking rocks. That's insane. That blows my mind. So for me, it's just huge, compelling evidence for worldwide petrification activities, right? The plasma apocalypse, basically. Anyways, so then I came across this picture, which it says, let me see if I can make it big here. It says that this is a picture, or this is a fossil, of a fish eating a pterosaur displayed in the Solnhofen Museum. First, I'm just going to comment on this fish. This is the angriest fish I have ever seen in my life. This is a scary fish. I would not want to screw with this fish or piss this fish off, right? Look at this fish's face, man. It's like it posed for the picture. Like, it's like it seriously is looking at me right now while it is like harpooning this Fantazoid. Which, by the way, that totally looks like a Fantazoid. Let me make it smaller. All right, it says that it's a fish eating a pterosaur. The hell's a pterosaur? So if you look up a pterosaur, it's basically a pterodactyl. It's like a weird-looking pterodactyl, all right? So let's ask the question. I'll look it up real quick. How large were pterodactyls? How big were pterosaurs? Pterodactyl is a form of pterosaur. Oh, they range from pigeon size with a wingspan of 18 inches. Okay, so I guess they were small. See, I always thought that they were depicted as huge. I'm not talking about baby ones. You know what I mean? I don't know. Anyways, this is a Fantazoid. Okay, hey, hold on. Let me make it smaller. You can't even see this thing. Look at this thing, man. Hold on. I'm gonna make it. Hold on. I gotta do something to change this. Hold on. I'm gonna. Boom. I'll just make it super big. Look at this. I'm gonna start at the tip of its mouth. Look at all these jagged, gnarly freaking teeth coming off of its big old face. That strikes me as a Fantazoid. That does not strike me as a bird, as, you know, I don't like the word dinosaur. You know what I mean? Dinosaurs are too cartoonified for me. This is a monster. All right. Look at this thing. And then it's kind of like got this like bug-like looking body type deal. It's all folded up like it's got grasshopper looking appendages and stuff. Like, this is a monster, and this fish is serious. This is a serious fish. Anyways, I would be too, right? If there was a big old Fantazoid in the water near my family or something. This fish is not having it. Like, I just thought, every time I see this picture, it cracks me up. I wanted to share that mostly so I could take it down because it's been up on my computer forever. So yeah, hold on. All right. No, I don't want to get rid of that. Where was I? Ah, shoot. All right, hold on. I'm going to get rid of that. Boom. Oh, it's my background. It's my regular background. Let me see if I can put up the chat on the screen here. Chat, is it working? No. All right, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to hook up the chat, and then I'm going to take a quick break. We'll come back, and I'm just going to hang out in the chat. And if you guys have questions, you want to talk about the presentation or something, now is a good time to get my attention. And thank you all who have sent me money and given me like money to use in my personal life. Those are awesome. I super appreciate it. All right, so let's get the chat pulled up here. I'm going to get the chat put up on the screen, and then we'll take a quick just a short break, and then we'll come back and hang out for a bit. That's how I'm going to do things from now on. I'm going to do the presentation first. I'm going to try to not even do an intro, Because, I mean, I know half of us, we like skip the first 5 minutes of every video, especially if you watch those YouTube channels that are like, so before I talk about Lady Justice, I'd like to talk about robot toys. I found that robot toys are the best things that you can have on your desktop. I found this company, you know what I mean? Like, doesn't really resonate with me. I get it. You know, people need to make money and stuff. I get it. But also, I'm skipping your video all the way to like the middle. All right. Anyways. It's funny. Live chat. Here we go. All right. I'm such a watcher of other YouTubers. Oh, hey, by the way, I also want to give a shout out to Autodidactic. He invited me to come hang out with him and something Tartaria, like Tartaria Australia or something like that. I can't remember what the girl's name or her handle or whatever is. But tomorrow night, it was so weird to me too, because when he asked me, I had to calculate all kinds of crazy time and stuff because he lives in Australia, which when looking at things from like the perspective of like how we keep track of time is in the future from me. It's like a day in the future, right? So he's like, hey, do you want to, I had to like calculate it. I had to Google it and stuff. Anyways, let me go. I'm going to put on the break screen. We'll do my teaser for my gift, my surprise that I'm working on for all of you. Let's see if maybe that generates some discussion. Let's see what your guesses are. See if you can figure out what it's going to be. It's for when I get 100,000 subscribers. Okay. I've been making a gift for all of you for when I get 100,000 subscribers. All right, hold on. Let's do this. My mind is scatterbrained right now. Chat. Did I already do that? Oh, sweet. Kelly, Tartaria, Australia. That's probably it. That sounds about right. Thanks, 4Jacks. All right, cool. Enjoy this little intermission and we'll be right back to hang out in the chat. Okay, actually, I'm so sorry. I forgot I said I was going to run the credits first. So that way people can see the credits before everybody takes off. My bad. So let's run those credits, then we'll come back and we'll hang out.
So hard to fade away. I try so hard to fade away, but something's forcing me to stay. It Cool.